What's up, everybody, and welcome to Maximize the Business of You. I'm Maximino, and welcome to another episode of Maximize, the show that brings you interesting people so you can learn about their habits and possibly learn something for yourself to apply in your life.
Rising up, here we go. No time to be afraid. They say it's impossible. And listen to what they say. They got me motivated. Oh yeah, I'm motivated.
I have something a little different today. We're talking history today. We're talking about Bronx history, my hometown. And I have my man, Angel Hernandez, a Bronx historian. Angel, welcome.
All right.
So for people that wouldn't know or don't know who you are, how would you describe what you do?
Well, you started off as saying a Bronx historian. This is what I do. I run the education department for the Bronx County Historical Society. It's a nonprofit organization. I wear many hats. I also deal with media, public, and government relations. I do tours at our two houses, the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage.
And that's where we at right now.
Yeah.
We're in front of the Edgar Allan Poe Cottage.
Yes.
Go ahead,
And we also have another museum. It's the Museum of Bronx History at the old Valentine Varying House. So my job is to disseminate and keep educating people from all over the world about the historic heritage of the Bronx.
Awesome. How did you get started? Because you're a kid from the Bronx, kid from the hood. How did you get to this position right now, and what inspired you to become a Bronx historian?
Well, I was always into history. Ever since I was a young boy, and one of my favorite subjects in history was the American Revolution. So learning about the war and how we gained independence from Britain, I've always wondered where were important battles or skirmishes fought. And I thought if Washington was inaugurated in Lower Manhattan and the British surrendered in Yorktown, what happened in between? So I was always curious, what happened in the Bronx? You know, how was the Bronx involved in the American Revolution? Ever since then, I've been reading about the Bronx, reading about famous people, important events that happened in the Bronx. And we're constantly documenting this history and sharing it with everyone. So that's basically what brought my attention to Bronx history.
What would you say is something that most people don't know about the Bronx?
Well, there's a lot to say. I mean, first of all, hip-hop music. You know,
Right.
A lot of people still don't know that hip-hop music started here. Hip-hop music is heard around the world. You have Japanese hip-hop, you have German hip-hop. Well, that started here, not too far from us, 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. Doo-wop
Kool Herc.
music, Kool Herc, shout out to Kool Herc. And you also have doo-wop music that started here as well. This is home of one of the best baseball teams in the league, the New York Yankees.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of history here.
A lot of history. There's a population of 1.4 million, and it's a melting pot here.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that impresses me about the Bronx, I mean, I'm from the Bronx. I love the Bronx. I'm raising my family in the Bronx. But one of the things that impressed me about the Bronx is all the talented people that came out the Bronx. And I asked myself, through all the negative, you know, the Bronx gets a lot of negative light, you
Right.
know, poverty, education system, but there's so many influential people that come out of the Bronx. Why do you think that is?
because I think it's the drive to succeed. Because we come from this environment that's been put in a negative spotlight for so many years. I think educated people and people that have that drive to succeed, they want to do better. And they want to show the world that the Bronx produces these quality type individuals. I mean, we have a Supreme Court justice, you know, actively sitting, Sonia Sotomayor,
Awesome.
who was raised in Bronxdale
Projects, that's crazy.
You know, it's a neighborhood that's had a negative reputation for so many years, and sometimes that serves as inspiration for people to succeed and to achieve higher plateaus in life.
Right, like they say, started from the bottom, now we're here.
Exactly.
Do you love what you do?
I love what I do. You know, I work in the Bronx. I live in the Bronx. I love the Bronx. I love history. So making that combination, making that it's a beautiful thing. But working for the Bronx County Historical Society gives me the opportunity to interact with my people of the Bronx. It gives me the opportunity to work in my backyard and teach people what I know and what I enjoy teaching as well.
Right. See, this is what I always like to maximize. Is all about, it doesn't matter what you do, it's about loving what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you love what you do. It's something really different. Like, a lot of people wouldn't even know that existed.
Yeah.
Like, I can be the Bronx, a Bronx historian.
Absolutely.
And teach people about the Bronx. So tell us about some neighborhoods in the Bronx, like Parkchester. You were telling me something about Parkchester earlier.
Well, Parkchester was it was the very first living community in the Bronx. Parkchester was completed in the mid-1930s, and the focus was to have this little living community in the middle of nowhere in the East Bronx for middle-class families. So Parkchester, after many years in the 1960s, that's when things started changing. Demographics started changing. More different socioeconomic levels of families started moving in as well. Parkchester now is considered to be still one of the best living communities in the city. Co-op City came after, which was said to be the largest living community in this country. We have that here in the Bronx. Where I'm from Soundview. I'm very proud of Soundview, and Castle Hill too, which is the next community over, and it's a part of the Bronx that a lot of people are still curious about. There's a lot of history that needs to come out of Soundview. One of it is, Sonia Sotomayor, who became a Supreme Court justice.
That's amazing to me.
From your neck of the woods, you have Jennifer Lopez.
Of course.
Everybody knows J-Lo from the Bronx.
Sure.
So it's these people, when you start learning about their environments.
Yeah. Ralph Lauren.
You have Calvin Klein, who was from here.
So I was always curious about the 70s in the Bronx, because they always say the Bronx burning in the 70s, and when you see like historical pictures, it's like a war zone.
Yeah.
What can you describe that was happening in that time, that socially, economically, but also creatively? Because in the 70s, that's when the Bronx was at its lowest point. That's when hip hop came out the ashes and was created.
Well, I'll tell you what, it all started before the 70s. It actually started post-World War II. And to make a long story short, what happened in the Bronx, as well as throughout New York City in the 1970s, were a culmination of different problems that happened since the ending of the World War. You had the middle class in the Bronx moving out into the suburbs, creating pockets of poverty throughout the Bronx. You had drug abuse coming into the communities. You had high unemployment rates because manufacturing and factory jobs were moving out of New York City. Just like
what's happening in Detroit.
Exactly. See, here's the thing. What happened in the Bronx happened all over the country. But the reason why the Bronx became a poster child for urban decay was because of media attention. If it wasn't for President Jimmy Carter in 1977 making an unscheduled stop to the Bronx, perhaps another city in the United States could have been the prime example. But the Bronx was. And we had to live with that.
For a long time.
Exactly.
Right now we still live with that.
Absolutely. And that's why my job, teaching people about the Bronx and talking about everything that's happened, it's important. Because we need to know where we're coming from. We need to know how much progress we've made since that time. So when we look at that history, and when we look at a time when we were at rock bottom, the only way we can go is up.
Absolutely.
So when we have Supreme Court justices coming out of the Bronx, where we have these movie stars, where we have these popular music genres coming out of the Bronx, it was all out of inspiration. Hip-hop music started in the 70s. In that time when the Bronx was at its lowest, it was going through all these fiscal crises, and there was high unemployment rates, the crime rate was skyrocketing as well. And you had these young African Americans, and you also had some young Puerto Ricans as well. What they wanted to do was express what was bothering them in the community. People hear about hip-hop starting in the Bronx. It wasn't about bling. It wasn't about women. It wasn't about gold. It was about what was bothering these young guys It was about.
It's a social message.
It was a social
message.
thing.
Yeah.
It was a message coming out of the hood. You know, it was a voice coming out of these streets that were agonizing with crime, with drug abuse, with unemployment, with robberies, you know, with many things that were happening at the time. And these group of rappers, what they wanted to do was give a voice to what was going on. So that's how hip-hop started. It started out of inspiration. So there's a lot going on in the Bronx, and in the next 5-10 years, there's going to be some interesting things and some interesting sites to look upon. And I'm here as a historian to record that and share that with generations to come.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited for the Bronx. I love the Bronx, and I know you're passionate about the Bronx. I thank you for being on Maximize and sharing some insight for the audience. We don't really get to hear about history, and I wanted to share history about my hometown. So thank you, Angel Hernandez. I appreciate you. The Bronx Historian right here. Again, listen, everybody, post and repost this episode to anybody you think might be interested in this. Maximize. We're here to inspire, to help, and to maximize your life. So if you think this is helpful for you and you think you learned anything from it, please share, post, and thank you again, baby. It's Maximize, the business of you. Peace.
Antidote.